Good afternoon. My name is Sean Laffey and I'm the Head of Asset Management with Irish Water. In keeping with the theme of our conference today, Restoring Our Waters, I'm going to give a short presentation on the progress that we have made since Irish Water's formation in 2014. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the challenges that we're currently facing, and I'll also mention a couple of opportunities and initiatives that we're working on. So moving on to progress to date, Irish Water has 1,100 wastewater treatment plants across the country. And since the start of 2014, we have built or upgraded 102 wastewater treatment plants. In the grand scheme of things, it might not seem like a huge number, but we target our investment on a risk and a priority basis. So in terms of payback for the environment, that investment has been quite significant. In terms of money put into water services in Ireland, up to the end of 2019, we invested more than 4 billion euros in water services. And we're expecting to invest a further 5 billion plus between 2020 and 2024 with the commencement this year of Revenue Control 3. In terms of urban wastewater treatment discharge compliance, we've increased our compliance from 39% at the end of 2013 to a projected 45% at the end of 2020. It is progress. It might not seem like a lot, but when you consider that Ringsend is roughly 40% of all of the wastewater treatment capacity in the country. And we're currently spending over 300 million euros bringing that up to standard. Once that investment pays off and we've achieved compliance at Ringsend, you'll see that figure move closer to 90%. In terms of wastewater discharge authorizations, we've increased compliance from 33% at the end of 2013 to a projected 44% by the end of 2020. So moving on to drainage area plans, in 2014, Irish Water received a huge amount of information from local authorities. And it must be said that the portfolio that we received, probably the least information on, would have been the below ground wastewater system, in other words, our sewage networks. We estimate we have 26,000 kilometres of sewers across the country. We have records for roughly 16,500 to 17,000. So it was imperative that we undertook studies and work to find out exactly what we were dealing with. We have 44 drainage area plans started at the moment and 30 are currently complete. And we hope that by the end of 2024, we'll have 58 drainage area plans completed at a cost of 50 million euros. Those drainage area plans will help us to understand the hydraulic performance of the network as it currently is, where we have infiltration, where we have leakage out of the networks, where there are bottlenecks, where there's a lack of capacity, and where our stormwater overflows are not working as they have been designed to work, or indeed, where there should be stormwater overflows and there are none. The drainage area plans will help us understand the current and future risks that we face, and will also help us identify solutions to mitigate those risks. I think it's fair to say at this early preliminary stage, the kind of monies that we're talking about to bring our wastewater networks up to scratch is hundreds, if not billions of euros. In terms of untreated agglomerations, there was 44 untreated agglomerations listed by the EPA at the end of 2013. We have completed work on 15 untreated agglomerations. We've either built brand new plants or we've connected those agglomerations to treatment plants that were nearby. That has stopped the discharge of over 17 million litres of raw sewage a day into our lakes, rivers and seas. And that was 44% of the total raw sewage that was there at the end of 2013. There are 29 agglomerations of the original 44 remaining, and an additional 6 have been added by the EPA since 2014. We were hoping to have the vast majority of those removed in 2021, going on into 2022. And I'll speak a little bit about the complexity of deliveries of large programs of projects a little bit later on. What we found for those remaining agglomerations is that we had to actually compulsorily purchase land for most of the treatment plants that we were planning to build. That's a statutory process. There are checks and balances. And a lot of those compulsory purchase orders generated oral hearings with An Bord Pleanála. I'm glad to say they've mostly been completed now at this stage. But the impact of that is that every CPO and oral hearing has added 2 years to that project timeline. So we're now looking at getting the remaining majority of those agglomerations off in 2022 and 2023. So moving on to river basin management plans, the second cycle, 2018 to 2021. This is the main plan that we work to when we talk about Water Framework Directive, getting our water bodies back to good status. We were very supportive of the prioritisation approach in the second cycle, which identified 255 wastewater treatment plants that needed to be upgraded. Of those 255, 51 of those in particular were deemed to be significant pressures, and they were targeted in priority areas for action. We will have 28 of those completed, those upgrades completed by the end of 2021. And we expect the rest of those priority areas for action to be completed very early in 2022 on to 2023. We're delivering significant investment, and out of the 255 wastewater treatment plants identified in the second cycle, we expect to have 124 of those upgrades completed by the end of 2021 when the second cycle runs out. We're also very supportive of the governance and implementation structures that have been set up. There's very strong collaboration between ourselves, the EPA, our own Department of Housing and Law Pro, and in particular the working group that was set up under the guidance of the Department of Agriculture's Fishery and the Marine to tackle pesticides in drinking water. It's been a very good success for us. It has produced a lot of very good results, and it's a very, very good sign and a very, very, very good guide to how we can work together in the future. The third cycle of the River Basin Management Plan now is in preparation, and we have significant investment in wastewater treatment plants planned for the third cycle. We have significant budget demands on our budgets. As I said, we have €5 billion, a little over €5 billion in Revenue Control 3. To date, between water and wastewater networks and treatment, we have identified in total over €18 billion worth of work that we can carry out. So you can see from that every euro we have could be spent 4 or 5 times over. Our investment plan for 2024 is committed, so we need to make sure that when we spend our capital and we invest it, that we're getting the best possible outcome for the Water Framework Directive targets. We'll also be looking to see what further measures we can provide at modest cost targeted to achieve Water Framework Directive outcomes. We're very strongly supportive of a cross-functional, cross-body, collaborative stakeholder approach in terms of prioritization in order to make sure that in the third cycle, all of our activities are targeted to achieve the best possible Water Framework Directive outcomes. And from our own experience talking to utilities in Europe and talking to our colleagues in Euro, we believe that Ireland, with a single utility in place and good, strong stakeholder interactions such as we have, is very well placed to perform very strongly against the Water Framework Directive objectives. So moving on to opportunities to do more for less, there's 2 or 3 that I'm just going to talk about here. The first one here is nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions such as integrated constructed wetlands can provide climate-resilient, low-carbon, low-OPEX solutions, which provide a great boost locally for biodiversity and also can offer social amenity benefits. The picture we have there is the construction of an integrated constructed wetland at Lixnaw in County Kerry. It has huge local support. It will be a very, very good enhancement to the village when it's finished. It'll also give a very, very strong boost to biodiversity in the area. Another nature-based solution we're looking at is down at Lough Catan in Kerry, which is the water source for the central Kerry region supply, which also supplies Tralee. We're planting native woodland around the lake where we have land, and that, whilst giving very good habitat and a very good boost for biodiversity, will also serve to trap any contaminants that might be coming towards the lake. And also, it will limit sediment runoff, which will always and help to work towards the quality of raw water that we have for that particular plant. So we're proposing a nature-based solution research innovation program, which will run desktop studies, and will also run a series of pilots to garner robust evidence for nature-based solutions. And we're hoping to optimize a suite of these interventions, which will serve the type of work that Irish Water does. Next, we're looking at blue-green infrastructure. There's a trend in progressive cities worldwide for the adoption of blue-green infrastructure. And what blue-green infrastructure tries to do is it tries to use engineering interventions in urban settings to try and mimic the natural water cycle as much as possible. Benefits include climate resilience, reduced flooding, reduced stormwater overflow spills, which is very good for us, better air quality, greener, more livable urban spaces, and it supports compact growth. We don't lead out in this particular initiative, but we are collaborating with local authorities and the Southern Region Assembly, and we are very, very supportive of this approach. And finally, biodiversity. There is a biodiversity emergency, and everyone realizes that biodiversity is essential for life. We are developing and have developed a biodiversity action plan, which will help us conserve, enhance, and work with nature. Irish Water has over 7,000 sites nationally. Some of them quite small, they would just be our pump house, but some of them actually very large. And if we can initiate biodiversity measures across a large part of our estate, it will make a very significant impact nationally. So the Biodiversity Action Plan identifies a range of enhancement measures to be applied across our sites in collaboration with the local authorities. They are very low cost. It could be something as simple as wildflower meadows or bat boxes, but some of them will actually result in a saving for us. So the picture at the top there is a wildflower meadow. It's actually a wildflower meadow on top of a covered reservoir in Castlebar, County Mayo. It's excellent for biodiversity. It's good for the invertebrates. It's good for the pollinators. It's good for the environment and for local birds and wildlife. But on top of that, it's also saving us money, because we used to mow that lawn, if you would call it, or that particular grass area twice a month. Now we don't mow it twice a month. We mow it twice a year. We crop it twice a year and remove the grass. So not alone is it a win for the environment, it's also saving Irish Water money. And the other picture there is a blue dancer fly down at the integrated constructed wetland in Dunhill in County Waterford. We have carried out ecological studies on the ICWs that we have, and they are very, very high quality habitats for invertebrates, which is great to see. A quick word about Irish Water's National Water Resources Plan. When people talk about the Water Framework Directive and when people talk about restoring good water body status, they always think about discharges into water bodies. They always think about combined storm water flows or what comes out of a wastewater treatment plant. But the Water Framework Directive also asks us to look at what we're abstracting. And if you over-abstract from a water body at particular low flows, you can very quickly do irreversible ecological and environmental damage. So our National Water Resources Plan is a 25-year strategy across all of our 535 water resource zones to ensure that we have a sustainable, secure and reliable drinking water supply for everybody. We're hoping to go out to consultation on the National Water Resources Plan in the near future, as soon as the lockdown is eased enough for us to have a meaningful engagement with people. We will be going out to consult on the methodologies that we're using and some of the outputs and outcomes from some of the study areas, as well as a strategic environmental assessment. The National Water Resources Plan looks to balance supply and demand for drinking water over the short, medium and long term. And it does that by assessing the amount of water available and the demand for water now and into the future. And then it also identifies ways to ensure that there will be enough water to meet those demands. And we can meet those in one of three ways, or a combination of three ways. We want to lose less. We need to tackle leakage. And we're spending €500 million between now and 2024 on leakage alone. We need to use less, and that means we need to engage with the Irish public around their water usage. We need to ask them to conserve water. We need a conversation with the Irish public. We need them to appreciate the fabulous resource that they have and to respect it. And then we also need to make sure that we supply smarter infrastructure. In other words, when we're investing in the future, we make sure that we build the infrastructure in places where the water is sustainable, and then, if necessary, build out networks. Why do we need it? It's European and national policy. The Water Framework Directive requires it. It's standard practice for water utilities worldwide. And also our own Water Services Strategic Plan calls it out, and that was signed off by the Minister in 2015. And also for our customers and the Irish public and our stakeholders, it sets out very clearly what our approach is to sustainability, secure and reliable drinking water supplies over the next 25 years and what targets we're looking at. And finally, it's kind of a quick word about the challenges that we face. The challenges of delivering that amount of money every single year are very, very complex. When Irish Water was formed in 2014, the previous year, roughly €310 million was spent capitally on water and wastewater projects across Ireland. This year, we're hoping to spend €760 million. And next year, we're hoping to increase that to €840 million. So you can imagine over 7 years to increase investment that much has certainly put a strain on our supply chain. We're not a large country. And I'm sure most of our contractors will be familiar household names to all of you. So we need to make sure that we don't exceed the capacity of our supply chain. All we do is drive up prices. We won't get value for money. There is a complexity around delivering projects. I think it's safe to say in 2014, 2015, Irish Water was very optimistic about what we could do. I think we have learned a lot since. We've become very, very skilled, and we've had a lot of experience in delivering a lot of projects. At any given time, we have over 400 projects underway at various stages, from just thinking about them right the way up to construction. So delivering that portfolio of projects is very, very challenging. Budget. You can't do anything without money. Our strategic funding plan has been signed off by the Minister in 2018, and we have our allowances under the National Development Plan. It's imperative that the budgets we have are maintained so that we can maintain our commitments to our outputs and outcomes. If our budgets are reduced, we're obviously still going to have the same priorities. It's just we're going to be looking at them over a longer time scale. We also have increased capital maintenance needs. Our asset base is growing older every year. An example of that would be, for instance, on our water network side, a lot of our mains are asbestos concrete, put in the 70s. They're now coming to end of life, and we're seeing increased bursts. So we're having to divert money away from upgrades and new builds of treatment plants into maintaining our asset base, and in some places having to go in and carry out emergency work, emerging needs, we call it. An example of that would have been leak slip last year. We had a boil water notice, we had an EPA audit, and on foot of that we were carrying out work which is running into a number of millions of euros. That work would be completed, the money has been made available, but it's been made available by deferring other projects because we have a capped budget. As I mentioned, we have a climate and biodiversity emergency, and that's becoming very real. We're having a second drought in 3 years, and our studies indicate, for instance, that by 2050, there'll be 50 megalitres a day less available in the Liffey for Dublin. And finally, this is an unknown challenge, the impact of C-19, COVID-19. We're still dealing with that. It's given a very rude fiscal shock to the Irish economy. It's also imposed ways of working on our contractors and our consultants, and indeed our own local authority partners, which means absolutely health and safety needs to come first. But it may impact the effectiveness and efficiency of delivery of service, which will in turn perhaps lead to increased costs. So that's being quantified at the moment. So that's my presentation today. Thank you very much for listening. And I'd like to encourage you, if you have any questions, please, just if you could submit them to the app, and we'll get them answered as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.